happy little games. Cowboys and Indians. Growing up in the 1970s, I can recall playing this after school with my personal favorite being the Lone Ranger. With my faithful steed Silver and trusty sidekick Tonto by my side, every day would be a brand new adventure. Due to the emergence of technology at this time, it didn't take long for the Wild West genre to infiltrate video games. For me, it started with the likes of Gunfight, Wild Gunman, Law of the West on the Commodore 64, Gunsmoke, and possibly the ultimate full-motion video cowboy light gun game, Mad Dog McCree.
Hey, now that's good shooting, stranger.
Thanks to the wizards at Konami, there was another run-and-gun cowboy game that featured 4-player madness with spectacular gameplay. The name of the game was Sunset Riders, and if you ever wanted to be a rootin', tootin', shootin' cowboy, then this was the game for you. What was the main inspiration for this game? Why were certain home versions censored? So strap on your 6-shooters and make sure your aim is straight. This is the history of Sunset Riders. The year is 1990 and Konami designer Hideyuki Tsujimoto has been tasked by the higher-ups at Konami to create another successful 4-player arcade game. Arcade goers were all abuzz over Konami's earlier arcade effort, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was proving to be an enormous success. Not only did the Turtles look and sound like they stepped right off the Saturday morning cartoon, but the playability was great, with the game offering loads of moves. Add in 4-player simultaneous action and you get a recipe for a classic arcade game. Konami had been around since the mid-70s and for a while appeared to be the king of the arcades. Some of the franchises they created were Frogger, Track and Field, Radius, Castlevania, and Contra. It would be easier to list the games they didn't create. Mr. Tsujimoto knew he wanted to use the same arcade board that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 used, but had to come up with a concept that was completely different. At the time, most of Konami's programmers were big fans of movies from America, with a lot of inspiration being taken from these films, such as the Vampire Killer Whip being lifted straight from Indiana Jones. Growing up, Mr. Tsujimoto was a fan of the spaghetti westerns from the 60s and 70s, with his personal favorite being Clint Eastwood. He had noticed that there weren't a whole lot of western-themed games on the market and felt this was a niche that he could gladly fill. One of his previous designs was Contra, and felt this would translate well into a Wild West theme. The game could offer 4-player simultaneous action and be structured similar to the Turtles, with each stage having an end-level boss that you have to defeat, along with cutscenes and voices in between. Sunset Riders was released in the arcade by Konami in 1991. As the story goes, the no-good, rotten Sir Richard Rose has taken control of a mining town in the Wild West and is bleeding the local yokels dry. You take on the role of one of 4 bounty hunters by the names of Steve, Billy, Bob, and Cormano, who attempt to save this tiny, dusty town and give it back to its people. The game takes place across 8 stages, with a wanted poster at the beginning of each one showing who you have to defeat at the end of the level. The gameplay is very reminiscent of Contra and Rolling Thunder. Initially, the game shipped in a 4-player cabinet with each character being locked into a different joystick and control panel. Shortly thereafter, a 2-player cabinet was shipped, allowing you to pick any of the characters you wish, no matter which joystick you used. Each character is equipped with a different gun. Steve and Billy use revolvers. Bob carries a rifle, and Cormano will use a double-barrel shotgun. The run and gun action gets fast and furious almost immediately, and you have to be on your toes because one shot from the enemy will send you to Boot Hill. There are various power-ups littered throughout the game, which a lot of times you have to enter doors to receive them, which is very similar to Rolling Thunder. Another similarity to Rolling Thunder is that there are 2 tiered stages which you can jump between. Certain enemies will also drop power-ups upon their defeat, and you can also locate them in various bags that are littered along the way. One of the best power-ups in the game is the gold badge, which will grant you fully automatic fire, and a silver badge that gives you a second gun. Both of these can be equipped at the same time for maximum carnage. As I mentioned, the action is fast and furious, with you barely having any time to take a breath before the various bandits set out to turn you into Swiss cheese. You also have to watch out for female bandits who will throw sticks of dynamite at you. You have to hurry up and throw them back, otherwise it explodes in your face. If you do manage to die, you will lose all of your power-ups. You can also throw various torches or rocks, and there's even a Gatling gun you can use on the last stage. This is a standard Western game through and through, with lots of little touches such as you having to ride across a herd of stampeding cattle on the first stage. Other stages seeing you riding on horseback. Going inside certain doors will grant you a nice, refreshing, powerful whiskey, while other doors will allow a little sexy time with a lady of the night for a nice little bonus. Speaking of bonuses, there are bonus stages after the 2nd and 5th levels in which you have to shoot each enemy that pops up. The graphics and animation are fantastic, with large, detailed characters similar in size to the Turtles arcade game. The music is also really well done, with plenty of Western riffs and chords. The Clint Eastwood spaghetti Western influence can be felt all throughout the game, including Cormano, who wears a poncho, as well as final boss Richard Rose, who reveals he is wearing a metal plate under his shirt to protect him from injury. There is one Easter egg at the end of the 5th level. If you are playing as Cormano and you defeat the boss, he will throw you his hat and you will promptly put it on and wear it for the rest of the game. The game was another success for Konami, and we did receive a couple of home conversions. Well, let's start with the bad first. At the time, the Super Nintendo was Konami's home console of choice, and this was to be Konami's first Sega Genesis game. Due to this, the game only shipped on a 4 megabyte cartridge, meaning that a lot of things had to be left on the cutting room floor. For starters, there are only 2 playable characters, which are Billy and Cormano. The animated intro scene from the arcade game is also missing. There are only 4 levels instead of 8, with those 4 typically being a lot longer than their arcade counterpart. The level layouts are also completely different from the arcade game. The character sprites are pretty faithful to the arcade game, with nice animation all throughout. However, there is an ugly black border at the top of the screen. The sound effects and music are another story entirely. While the music is simply adequate, almost all of the voices are gone. What little of the voices remain sound as if they've been gargling razor blades. Now, I'm not saying they're fart and queef bad, but they don't sound very good either. The bonus stages have also been replaced with horse riding segments where a girl tosses items from a covered wagon. There is a 2-player versus mode where you have to shoot the other player until they run out of energy. This was an exclusive mode to this version. Now, to be fair, it does control really well and feels like the arcade game, which is exactly what you want. There is also little censorship when compared to the Super Nintendo version. The only other home conversion we received was for the Super Nintendo, and it is extremely well done. Not only do we get the animated intro from the arcade game, but we also get all 4 players to choose from. The reason that a lot of content was not cut from this version is because the cartridge size was double of the Sega Genesis port, so there was plenty of room to fit everything in. All 8 arcade accurate levels are included, as well as the bonus stages, so this really feels like you are playing the arcade game with only a few of the bells and whistles stripped out. The graphics and animation are nice and smooth, with only a few of the scaling effects from the arcade game missing. The music sounds great, and most of the voices made it over, only this time they added subtitles to make understanding everything just a little bit easier. The controls are nice and tight, and it feels just like the arcade game. A few things were changed from the arcade original though. The saloon ladies that you encounter are wearing a few more articles of clothing, so instead of getting the full pint, you're only getting the half pint. All of the dynamite tossing ladies were replaced with generic bandits. When your character is hit by fire, there is no longer a burning animation. The biggest change is that all Native American enemies were removed and replaced with regular bandits. The boss, Chief Scalpum, was renamed to Chief Wigwam. These changes were only made in the Super Nintendo version. The game was recently released as part of the Arcade Archive series on the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. One new line of dialogue was changed for this release, and that was El Greco saying "Adios, amigo" instead of "Die, gringo." Chief Scalpum also had his name changed to Wigwam, just like in the Super Nintendo version. This was another extremely fun 4-player arcade game from the masterminds at Konami. In the mid-80s to mid-90s, it seemed as if the company could do no wrong when it came to releasing successful multiplayer arcade games. If you've never had a chance to kick up your spurs and gun down some mangy varmints, you owe it to yourself to give this game a shot. You'll be glad you did. If you like this video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and also comment. Also, if you would like to support me on Patreon, please click the link below. Thank you so much for watching.